January 16th, 2016, Saturday of the first week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Samuel. There was a stalwart man from Benjamin named Kish, who was the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite. He had a son named Saul, who was a handsome young man. There was no other child of Israel more handsome than Saul. He stood head and shoulders above the people. Now the asses of Saul's father Kish had wandered off. Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the servants with you and go out and hunt for the asses." Accordingly they went through the hill country of Ephraim and through the land of Shalisha. Not finding them there, they continued through the land of Shaalim without success. They also went through the land of Benjamin, but they failed to find the animals. When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord assured him, "This is the man of whom I told you. He is to govern my people." Saul met Samuel in the gateway and said, "Please tell me where the seer lives." Samuel answered Saul, "I am the seer. Go up ahead of me to the high place and eat with me today. In the morning, before dismissing you, I will tell you whatever you wish." Then, from a flask he had with him, Samuel poured oil on Saul's head. He also kissed him, saying, "The Lord anoints you commander over his heritage. You are to govern the Lord's people Israel, and to save them from the grasp of their enemies round about. This will be the sign for you that the Lord has anointed you commander over his heritage." The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "Lord, in your strength the king is glad." O Lord, in your strength the king is glad. In your victory how greatly he rejoices. You have granted him his heart's desire. You refused not the wish of his lips. Lord, in your strength the king is glad. For you welcomed him with goodly blessings. You placed on his head a crown of pure gold. He asked life of you. You gave him length of days forever and ever. Lord, in your strength the king is glad. Great is his glory in your victory. Majesty and splendor you conferred upon him. For you made him a blessing forever. You gladdened him with the joy of your face. Lord, in your strength the king is glad.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus went out along the sea. All the crowd came to him, and he taught them. As he passed by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the customs post. Jesus said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed Jesus. While he was at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners sat with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. Some scribes who were Pharisees saw that Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors and said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus heard this and said to them, "Those who are well do not need a physician, but the sick do. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners." The Gospel of the Lord.
January 16th, Saturday of the first week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from 1 Samuel 9, 1-4, 17-19, and 10:1. The people of Israel have asked Samuel to anoint somebody as king of Israel. They want to be like the other nations. And here we begin to hear the story of Saul, who is from the tribe of Benjamin, who will be anointed by Samuel as the first king of Israel. Remember, up to this time Israel had been ruled by judges, charismatically called leaders, who would have a juridical function, an executive function, a military function, and a prophetic function. Well, Saul is looking for his father's donkeys, and he asks, "Where is the seer?" That's a word that's very often used for prophets in Israel, the seer, the one who can determine the secrets of the universe, the secrets of God. Saul eats with him, but then anoints him. And remember, the word for the anointed one in Hebrew is Messiah. So Saul is in a sense a Messiah, an anointed one. That's a term that was used all throughout the Old Testament for kings, for prophets, etc. In this way, Saul becomes the leader of Israel. Unfortunately, it's not going to turn out well because Saul is a bit arrogant and he becomes a bit paranoid and he tries to murder David, etc. He's rejected by the Lord. And we'll have to talk about that when we get to those passages. Nevertheless, Saul is described as a handsome young man. There's nobody else in Israel more handsome than him. It's very typical of Old Testament descriptions, that they would build up the person. Think of Psalm 45, that you are the fairest of the son of men, grace is poured upon your lips, God has blessed you forevermore. It's that same idea. The Gospel is from Mark 2, 13 to 17. In the first chapter of Mark, we heard 4 disciples called by Jesus, Peter and Andrew, James and John. In this passage, we hear a 5th being called by Jesus, Levi. Now, Levi is a tax collector, and this Levi is probably the same person as Matthew. Tax collectors were hated in Israel because they collaborated with the Roman authorities. They were inherently dishonest. They would use the force of Roman troops to take what they wanted. Nevertheless, Jesus calls them and then eats with sinners and tax collectors. That was something that the Pharisees wouldn't do. They considered their sinfulness a type of contagion. We still have a touch of that idea. We might tell our teenager not to associate with certain people because we're afraid the teenager will pick up the bad habits of those other people. We are afraid they'll catch what the others have. And it's that same idea. Pharisees would just not eat with sinners. Jesus views it a different way. He views these people as alienated. Now granted, they're alienated because of what they've done in their own lives. They're their own worst enemy. Nevertheless, Jesus looks not at the guilt that they have, but rather at their brokenness. And when the Pharisees complain that he's eating with them, he says, I've not come for the righteous, but for sinners. Again, this is an important lesson for us to remember. The church is to reach out to sinners. We individually are to reach out to sinners. We do that by love. Guilt and fear will not bring people to conversion. It only brings conformity. Only love and mercy bring people to conversion. And so Jesus associates with them to begin to heal their hearts, much as he did with the paralytic who was lowered through the roof. The Pharisees do not understand that. They want to be righteous, but in a Jewish sense. The word for righteous is tzaddik, and tzaddik, according to the Pharisees, meant keeping the law to the letter, which meant disassociating yourself with anybody who doesn't do that. They separated themselves from society to keep themselves pure. That's not what Jesus did. And may God bless us.